Well, Shreyas Iyer has joined an elite list of Indian batters to have scored 100 on Test debut. Finally, a Test debut for Shreyas Iyer, and finally he gets to 100 and in style. Remember, he dealt in boundaries mostly this morning. He was unbeaten 75 overnight. Ravindra Jadeja got out for 50 without adding to his overnight score, but Shreyas Iyer was completely unput out, hit a flurry of boundaries from 88 to 96. He moved there with two successive boundaries, Kylie Jameson, and then he pushed hard for a double when he was on 98 to join some very illustrious batsmen who have scored hundreds on debut for India as the 16th batsman from India overall to have achieved that feat. Remember, Saurav Ganguly, Mohammad Azharuddin, back in the day, these guys had started off their careers in a flourish and they went on to become legends of the sport. More recently, you've had Rohit Sharma scoring 100 on debut, Shikhar Dhawan doing that, Prithvi Shaw doing that 3 years back against the West Indies, and now Shreyas Iyer. All of these hundreds are special. All of these hundreds have, will be etched in history forever, will be etched in our memories forever. But this Shreyas Iyer 100 for me is really special. These are not easy runs. This no 100 on debut, no 100 in Test cricket is ever easy. But my point is, he was under pressure. India were in a spot of bother. India were under a bit of pressure when Shreyas Iyer walked into bat. Really, he saw wickets tumble in front of him, around him. India were 145 or 140 odd for four. Imagine the two most senior batsmen in the side, Chiteshwar Pujara and Ajinkya Rahane, had been dismissed without scoring too many. Pujara 26, Rahane 35, the captain, the vice captain. Mayank Agarwal got out early. Shubman Gill, of course, stuck through for a half century, making a comeback into the Test team. But Shreyas Iyer and Ravindra Jadeja, first off, a brilliant partnership, over 100 runs, and then really rescued India from choppy waters. And then Shreyas Iyer was just completely adamant. He was aggressive against the spinners. He looked so good. He looked so good throughout. Even against Kylie Jameson, Sunil Gavaskar himself was appreciative of that cover drive when Shreyas Iyer moved from 92 to 96, saying that any young batsman watching, that is what they want to see. That is how their coaches would tell them to play that cover drive. He was just sublime, taking on some of the finest bowlers in the world. And of course, Kyle Jamieson has been the wrecker-in-chief for New Zealand so far in this innings. With 3 wickets, he's been extremely dominant. Now begs the question, now that he's gone past 100, of course, India are beginning to move into a very dominant position in this test match. Now, couple of questions. One is, of course, this is Shreyas Iyer has made a dream debut on 100, scored 100 on debut. What happens in Mumbai when Virat Kohli returns to the Test team to lead the side? Which of these middle order batsmen will you leave out? A lot of questions. And imagine, had the regulars not been rested, had KL Rahul not been injured, who knows? Shreyas Iyer may not have played. Had it been a full strength squad with nobody being rested, one would wonder whether Shreyas Iyer would have even been part of this test squad. No Rohit Sharma, no Virat Kohli, no Rishabh Pant, and of course KL Rahul was injured just before the first test match, ruled out of the series. Virat is returning for the second test. Who do you leave out? Ajinkya Rahane, I said this at the start of the show, in the morning, 16 test matches, 102 half centuries. He's really struggled for form. Chiteshwar Pujara batting at number 3 hasn't been at his best. These two said before the test series started, runs, hundreds don't matter as long as we're contributing to the team's performances. Well, let's be a little frank here. Let's just call it out for what it is. You haven't really contributed that much to the team's performances. Yes, Pujara was belligerent. He was solid in Australia. He took a lot of body blows. But apart from a couple of half centuries there, you come back to the series in India against England. You go to the series against England in England. Pujara did redeem himself a little bit with a couple of half centuries there. Highest score of 91 since the start of 2020. I'm not even going back to 2019. Pujara had a brilliant series down under 3 years back, 2018, 2019. Rahane hasn't had that kind of a groundbreaking series. So this is now a serious question mark on who will retain that place once Virat Kohli comes back. Who makes way? Can you drop a batsman who scored 100 on debut and in tough conditions? Like I said, This wasn't one of your typically flat Indian pitches. This was not a mediocre bowling lineup. This is against the world champions of Test cricket at a time, and this century came at a time when runs were needed, when crucial runs were needed because the top order batsman had been dismissed. Shreyas Iyer was the last recognized um, a full-time batsman. Then you started off with Ravindra Jadeja, the all-rounder. Then you were going to Riddhiman Saha, who was himself making a comeback into the Test team after almost 1 year. Then you go into R. Ashwin and Akshar Patel, who are good batsmen. R. Ashwin has Test match centuries, but I'm talking about Shreyas Iyer being the last recognized batsman. From therein to have pulled through and scored 100 on debut, he batted like he's owned this platform for years. He's batted like he's a veteran of Test cricket. That was his temperament, of course, and that is why it's so important to reflect on his first class performances as well. Over 4,000 runs at a strike rate of 80, over 80. All that is important. All those runs are crucial, and that's why your performances in first class cricket are so important, so crucial. Great to have good numbers in the IPL, great to have good numbers in the Saeed Mushtaq Ali tournament, but when you're making a foray into Test cricket, your experience of first class cricket, your experience of scoring big runs there comes into play. Playing under pressure, playing with wickets down as a middle order batsman, that's when your true temperament and your true character shows, and that's exactly what Shreyas Iyer did. He took calculated risks against the spinners. He didn't shy away from punishing the loose balls from Kyle Jamieson, who's been absolutely spectacular so far in this Test match. Bowled bravely, he's bowled his heart out, as is Tim Southee. He was happy enough to watch off a few overs from Tim Southee at the start, but this was just absolutely brilliant and so good to watch. This from Shreyas Iyer. 100 on debut. He's joined the likes of his current teammates, Rohit Sharma. Prithvi Shaw is, of course, in South Africa playing for India A. Rohit Sharma has been rested for this Test series. Shikhar Dhawan hasn't been around the team for a while, but he got that brilliant 100 against Australia so many years back in 2013. Rohit Sharma also, by the way, got his 100 on debut in 2013 against the visiting West Indies team. Remember, it was Sachin Tendulkar's last international series for India. And Prithvi Shaw did that against the West Indies as well in about 2018. So that was 3 years back. But this is truly an amazing series, truly an amazing performance. And by the way, guess who else got 100 on Test debut in Kanpur? The legendary Gundappa Vishwanath. Just spectacular, right? How history sort of repeats itself in certain ways and brings a smile to our faces. We are fans, we are students of the sport, we admirers of the sport, and this is the beauty of sports. Also, remember, Shreyas Iyer got his maiden Test cap from the great Sunil Gavaskar, who himself got off to such a dream start to his Test career. 50s in each innings of his debut Test in the West Indies against one of the most fearsome, I guess possibly arguably the most fearsome pace attack in the history of cricket. So there is so much to look back and reflect on, of course, and you also go back. So since we're talking numbers, since we're talking about stats, you go back. The last three debut Test centurions for India are from Mumbai: Rohit Sharma, Prithvi Shaw, and Shreyas Iyer. And it's been happening quite frequently, right? You start from Shikhar Dhawan, of course, he's from Delhi, but when he scored that 100 against Australia in 2013, and then from Rohit Sharma, then from Prithvi Shaw, then from Shreyas Iyer, from 2013 to 2021. This goes on to show how many batsmen have done so spectacularly well to come to that level and score 100. That also shows you the depth of Indian cricket. That also tells you a lot about how well these young cricketers are groomed, the kind of platforms that they get. Of course, it helps that they play in the IPL, but make no mistake, there is a massive difference between the IPL and international cricket. It's a step forward, 2 or 3 steps, notches up, but it helps to be in that sort of an environment. High quality cricket, undoubtedly high quality cricket in the IPL, and all these players have excelled, whether it's Shikhar Dhawan, Rohit Sharma, Prithvi Shaw, and now Shreyas Iyer. All these guys have excelled, but the fact that they have scored truckloads of runs in the Indian domestic league, in the Indian domestic circuit, that in itself is it's testimony to the fact that these guys have learned the absolute skills. They have earned the absolute skill sets to go and do so well at the biggest stage. Well then, Shreyas Iyer, 100 on test debut. Brilliant, brilliant performance. Can India motor on from here? Currently, 292 for 6 even as we speak. This has been courtesy of Shreyas Iyer, that 100, that wonderful 100. Riddhiman Saha has just been dismissed, and in comes our Ashwin to join Centurion on test debut Shreyas Iyer. Riddhiman Saha was dismissed by Tim Southey, caught Blundell for 1 on his. It's not a happy return, but 6 wickets, all 6 wickets have fallen to New Zealand Pacers. 3 to Kyle Jamieson yesterday, and Tim Southey, 3 wickets for him, 2 of which have come this morning. Well, New Zealand are quietly chipping away. India are inching towards 300, 292 for 6 even as I speak. Can they go on to take that score line towards 400 is something that we'll keep our eyes on. Thank you so much for joining me on Sports Today. Please do subscribe. We'll come back to you at the end of day 2 at Stumps to tell you how things were shaping up in Kanpur in the opening test match. Thank you. Have a very good day.